Welcome to episode 38.
Lord, you did that correctly.
30,
Yes.
38 of... I always do it the question mark because I always forget the episode. Welcome to episode 38 of Cooperators. I'm Augmented Biscuits, and with me always is Chuck and Dice.
Hello.
We actually have a pretty huge show today. Huge, very huge. The best.
Yeah, and then just if you're wondering, we are pre-recording this because I am so sick of dealing with internet problems. So there's going to be no chat. But if you don't want to, just because you can't chat doesn't mean you can't leave a message. I'm talking to you, Vic. Go ahead and leave a message, and we'll, I don't know, respond to it.
We'll delete it.
We'll delete
unless
it.
Unless it's from Vic, then we'll play it on air.
Unless we find it appropriate for our egos.
Yeah. Also, this is our first episode of September, and this is also our episode before our Monsterpalooza trip.
Yep.
In a couple of weeks.
2 weeks, we're going to go to Monsterpalooza. We'll talk about that a little later. Why did I bring that back up? So we've got that planned, and today we're going to just talk about video games. We have a lot of video games to review.
Yeah, there's actually the fall season of video game releases is actually starting pretty soon.
Do video games have seasons?
Yeah, they tend to. Probably like up until a few years ago, a lot of video games were just being released mainly in the fall.
Right.
And actually, maybe probably like 4 or 5 years ago, the industry realized that they actually should be releasing a lot more stuff earlier in the year and also essentially like throughout the year.
Right.
So now we're seeing big releases in the winter, in the spring, and very rarely in the summer.
So like, is summer not a good time to release video games? Is like no one playing video games during that time?
I think that's what it is, mainly because people are taking summer vacations, or people are out and about. They're either taking their vacations, or they're on mainly vacations, or they're doing something besides staying home and playing video games.
So they go on vacations.
Yeah,
and then
I don't know. It's a weird thing. I don't know why the industry tends to not release stuff during the summer. It's really odd. But they save. It seems now with the rise in like indie gaming, the last like probably 5 or 8 years, you actually a lot of the platforms like Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony,
right,
they tend to have a lot of their bigger releases in the fall, and those are usually from the well-known publishers or studios like your Ubisoft releases, your EA releases, your Sony first-party game releases, and then those studios will tend to release maybe a game here or there, throughout the year, and then in between those, they'll have their smaller you get a lot of smaller indie games. Nintendo tends to release their stuff kind of weirdly. They do I think their releases tend to be kind of in like batches.
Yeah.
So I know when they release their Switch, they release two of their big system sellers, Mario and Zelda, alongside the launch. So it was the Switch launched with Breath of the Wild, and then Mario came a few months later. So Nintendo's a little inconsistent, but their big releases are going to be this actually in the not in the fall, but in the winter, like December, January, I believe.
Yeah, like what was it? Resident Evil 2, the remake's coming out that time too.
Yeah, they actually have a lot of stuff coming out for the winter now, and I think that's what the industry is realizing, is they actually need to start spraying it out a bit. Which also helps because, some stuff can get overlooked. Like, for example, when Sony released Horizon Zero Dawn, it released alongside The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. So a lot of people started rediscovering Horizon Zero Dawn and realized it was actually a really, really good game, and actually kind of gave some people actually preferred it over Zelda. But yeah, it's weird. I know. We're talking about the games coming out. A lot of games came out recently for the Switch. We actually have the big game for this fall, starting the fall release schedule is Spider-Man 2, or sorry, Spider-Man.
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 Spider-Man 2. That's like that was a PlayStation 2, buddy.
Enter Electro. Spider-Man is actually the really very big, huge, popular release. I think Red Dead Redemption is coming out later this year.
That's the sequel, right? Everyone's talking about that.
Yeah, I think it's in November, maybe December. I forgot the exact release date. And
I've never played it, but a former coworker of mine loves it.
yeah, I love it. It's my favorite game of all time.
It's no Earthbound, but okay.
Earthbound sucks. Okay, Earthbound is lame. Nobody likes Earthbound.
No one wants to play your freaking your current day average rock star game where you ride horses and bang hookers and
Why not?
What else do you guys do? Like, shoot things?
Yeah, we shoot
Great.
things.
We
shoot alligators and make.
How about unlocking the power within with love? That's what you do in Earthbound.
Nah, I'm good. Sounds like a game from sounds like an indie game.
It pretty much sort of is. I mean,
Honestly, Earthbound should have been an indie. Would have been an indie.
well, it would have been what's it called? That one game that was sort of based on Earthbound. God, I can't remember what it was called.
Undertale?
Yeah, Undertale. There you go. Because that game was made by a person who made a hack version of Earthbound. That was really good. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And then he decided to make his own version of it. And the thing is, I played it and I'm like, it's good. If I hadn't played Earthbound, I probably would love this game. But so happens I've played Earthbound.
So you're saying you don't like Undertale?
I can see the morning sun. Huh? Yeah.
You're saying you don't like Undertale?
I'm not a big. I mean, it's good. I haven't played it all the way. There's a cool function. I mean, we're not going to talk about Undertale, but just to give you a quick thing about Undertale is that it has a really cool function where you don't have to kill your enemies. You can actually sort of talk to them, and if you talk to them, it kind of unlocks sort of a different path for your character. So it actually pays off to be a pacifist. So it's an interesting kind of mechanic. Or you could just kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, yeah, we actually got a few good video game reviews. Chuck and Dice also has a video game review of his own. He's also going to talk about the NES Maker.
Yep.
So, yeah, let's get started. So,
You want to go Dead Cells?
Yeah, let's start off with Dead Cells. So, I believe I don't remember. Did I talk about it last episode?
I don't know.
I know I talked about Hollow Knight. So, Dead Cells. Dead Cells is another roguelike platformer, Metroidvania platformer.
Roguelike, so the levels are generated as you go along?
So
I'm doing hand motions right now. No one can see that, though.
When they say roguelike, that means that it's similar to something like Dark Souls, where when you die, you lose all every item you have, and you start all over from the beginning.
Oh, is that what roguelike is?
I think so.
I thought roguelike was the levels just keep on
randomly
changing.
generated.
Yeah.
I think there's aspects of. I think that's like a genre. I think rogue is like a. It's got certain aspects of it, and I think one of them is when you die, you lose everything you have, so you start from scratch again. And I think another aspect is
that's what
you're going through randomly generated levels.
Back in my day, we just called that Gradius or R-Type.
Yeah. So Dead Cells is from Twin Motion, I believe is the name.
Yeah, it's right.
Twin Motion. Yeah. It's very, very much a combination of a Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Metroid, Super Metroid, and Metroidvania and Dark Souls. And when I say Dark Souls, it means that this game is difficult, but it's not Hollow Knight where you can have bouts of anxiety because you're just gonna make one wrong move and you're gonna die.
Would you describe it as Nintendo hard?
No.
Okay.
It's actually easier than that. The more you play, the more stuff you unlock, the easier it gets. You do feel like you're getting more and more powerful. The thing with Dead Cells though, it becomes very addicting.
Oh, really?
I actually been playing this nonstop for quite a bit, for like a week or so. I actually almost missed one of my buses because of Dead Cells.
Can you not save in the middle of the game?
There's save points, but I just been so engrossed with it that I just don't bother looking up. And luckily, the bus driver knows where my stop's at. So when he stopped, he kind of called me out and hey. And I was like,
hey,
oh,
Dead Cells.
Yeah,
you want to get out here?
Yeah, you want to get out here? And I was like, oh, hey, thanks for stopping here. Sorry about that. So if you're looking at the video, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen gameplay clips and things like that. It's very much a platformer. You have
two-dimensional. Yeah.
Two-dimensional, has a 16-bit vibe to it. The unique thing with death cells is that when you do die, you start at the very beginning all over again. But anything you've used your currency for, and it's really just the one currency, because you get two kinds of currency. You get dead cells, you get cells that drop from enemies you defeat, but you also get gold. Gold is used to purchase weapons or upgrades or modifiers for any of your weapons in the game. Those all go away when you die. Now, anything that you spend your cell on, the cells, anything you unlock that's permanent. So let's say you use your cells to unlock a bigger health flask. So you can take 2 swigs of your health flask as opposed to 1. That's permanent. So things like that, like stuff like that will help you out and let you better survive any of these runs. This game is very, very challenging. There's also upgrades that help out, though. You have an upgrade that will let you wall climb and double jump, jump off walls, things like that. You have an upgrade that lets you use certain teleport spots. You have an upgrade that lets you break floors when you stomp down. And that stuff you can earn that stuff very much by exploring. I kind of got sick of not knowing where the hell those runes were, so I ended up looking it up. I'm not ashamed to admit that, like, I'm too old to figure this shit out now. I don't have the time to figure all this shit out.
I'm like that with, like, I guess RPGs.
Yeah.
Specifically JRPGs. Adventure games, I try not to do that. I mean, for me, platformers, you just kind of have to do it, but sometimes I need to see how a person did it. And it helps me out to see it visually because sometimes I can't visualize it myself.
I'm the same way, and that's kind of what's nice about YouTube videos now. People, post up their gameplays and tips and tricks, so it's nice. The cool thing about this game is that they do have a dodge mechanic. When enemies are about to attack, a exclamation point pops up, so that usually that's an indicator of knowing when you're gonna do a roll dodge.
That's also an indicator when they find Snake.
Yeah. And then when you see Snake, you just kill him.
Yeah.
That's kind of dark. It'd be like that scene in The Simpsons when they kill James Bond.
Scorpio.
Scorpio when they just killed.
It was James Bunt.
James Bunt. Oh, really? I love when die. I just love when the guys say, "I'll just unload the machine guns on him." I was like, "Wow, that's really dark. That's a really dark joke."
Scorpio controls the West Coast because of that.
East Coast.
Was it East Coast? No.
Yeah. I actually am really, really enjoying this game. Like I said, it's very difficult. It can be very, very difficult, but once you find your groove and you find items and weapon combinations that work, it's nice. A lot of what comes down to this game, though, is really getting weapons and modifiers on your weapons to kind of work in tandem. So, like, there's weapons that do bleeding damage, cause your enemies to bleed, and then you might have a weapon that does, let's say, plus 100% damage to any enemy that's bleeding. So if you have a sword, like if you have a bleeding sword that causes bleeding on an enemy, and then you have as your secondary weapon a bow that does 100% damage to anything that's bleeding, that's how you would actually kind of brute force your way through a lot of enemies, is you just make them bleed and then do more damage like that. So it's like that. So, I don't like to use this word because it just sounds like corporate speak, but synergy, and I'm using the air quotes.
Synergy.
If you tend to sync up your attacks, your primary and secondary weapons, and even further, you can also, because you also end up getting two abilities in addition to your weapons or grenades. They're essentially timed refreshing items. So you can throw down a grenade, you can throw down a bear trap to kind of trap your enemies. You can also do other things, like you can throw like these little blades and stuff. Those are really helpful. The secret of this is the really kind of like the way to succeed in Dead Cells is to use everything at your disposal. If you want to cheese something and just sit there and sit away and just shoot everything with a bow and arrow, like, by all means do it, because this game can be difficult at times and very, very frustrating.
It's like you have to kind of practice the better half of valor and, like, move away, not just sit there and try to.
Yeah. One thing I've had to kind of unlearn is not rushing through the area. Like, a lot of gameplay videos you'll see people running through this stuff. Yeah. You kind of have to take your time with it. But it's actually very, very, very satisfying gameplay.
Respect the level.
if you're familiar with any like Castlevania games or even like Symphony of Night, you would actually really enjoy the gameplay for this. The platforming is really good. It's top notch. Very responsive. The action, the actual like combat of it is actually very, very satisfying. Especially when you're doing like combos and you're working in tandem with using your two weapons, like working in tandem with both of them, and then you're rolling, and on top of that you're jumping, things like that. It gets really, really hectic, but it's actually very, very satisfying. So I would say definitely check it out. But like I said, I do want to stress this game can be a bit difficult.
Will it get like frustrating where you're like throwing your Switch down or throwing your controller down?
Yes. Especially since sometimes I have some really cheap deaths where I'm not paying attention, or I'm just like I'm just kind of winging it, and then I was like, oh fuck.
See, my new thing with like if I'm holding a portable system is that I start like I'm laying down and playing a video game. I just kind of use my legs to like kind of almost like when you're swimming, you're just like kicking. You're like, oh god damn it.
Yeah.
I don't throw down my controllers because I broke many controllers doing that.
I was cursing to myself on the train yesterday playing this game, and I think people were like wondering like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And they're like, oh, it's probably one of you video game nerds who like get pissed off all the time.
It's like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'll shoot you. Actually, no, I won't shoot them.
It's like, well, there's no gun control, so you could.
That's true.
Do, yeah.
That's true in the U.S.
Yeah,
see, it's very easy to buy a gun.
Yeah, but anyways,
that's a joke, guys. Relax.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. We're going to be on Twitter, and they're going to say, oh, the co-operators are, like,
advocating gun violence.
Gun
they're
violence.
Your typical video game.
And they play video games.
Violent video game nerds who want to shoot people. I'm like, no,
Yeah. I mean, yes. Sometimes we want to shoot people, but we're not going to act upon it.
Yeah. See, that's different. We have self-control.
But then again, guns are very cheap, and it's really easy to get a gun.
There is a Walmart close by.
And the voices are always talking in my head.
God damn it. Okay, moving on.
All right, moving
on. So what was the question you had? Sorry.
What's your frustrating? I guess I was going to ask, what's your frustrating thing that you do? I mean, I know you have to really censor yourself, like at home, because you don't want to. Because I live by myself, so I can say shit, motherfucker, and stuff like that. So
I just say no all the time.
No,
I'm just like no, damn it.
You're like Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I do like. I feel like I'm in the Terminator movie saying no all the time.
Ma'am.
I guess what's frustrating with Dead Cells really is just as you're making a run and you got a lot of cells going and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna unlock this next, and you end up just dying really cheaply. There was a few times where I got stun locked.
Yeah.
Where an enemy just was constantly stunning me and keeping me in a state of being like stunned and not being able to move. I also got hit into a wall of spikes, which is really annoying.
Like instant death spikes, or just
no? The spikes aren't instant death. They actually just take a chunk of your health, but it's a good chunk of your health. And right now currently I'm trying to unlock all the runes so I can navigate the levels quicker and easier. And I'm on the last rune that I have to get. And I actually got to the point where I have to fight something, but I don't want to go through this level because it's supposed to be really difficult.
It's just like a hard
yeah, it's really difficult.
Some horror games, that's the same for me. I know that there's a ton of monsters in this, like Resident Evil 7, for example. I have to go down this hallway.
And you're like, God damn it.
I can hear them.
And you're like,
yeah. Silent Hill the same way. The sewers in Silent Hill, where your radio doesn't work. That was the big thing for me because you could hear I guess they're turtles.
Yeah.
And they make this like noise, and when you could hear how many there are, and they're on the ceiling, and they won't jump down unless they're on top of you. And you can hear like how they're walking on the ceiling too. And it's annoying and stressful, and it took me forever to get through that part. But yeah, I don't like that either.
One last thing I do want to mention about this game. The environments are fucking gorgeous. Like, all the environments, the background, the little details in the world are just great. I mean,
it's not quite pixel graphics, right?
No, it's not quite pixel, but it's almost there. But they have so much detail, and it's so gorgeous to look at. Yeah. I mean, I'm also going to touch upon this with the Messenger, because that also has a really great art style. But yeah, I mean, I just can't get over how great this game looks. Right. And the music, I mean, if you love it, all the kind of like the haunting gothic music of Castlevania, you'll love this stuff. So, like I said, check it out. Just be prepared to die a lot.
Yeah. Throw down your controller. All right, let's move on to The Messenger. This is not a game that's based on the Mila Jovovich
movie.
Yeah, what was that? She was like
The Joan of Arc.
Joan of Arc story. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, this is about ninja.
So The Messenger is actually a game published by one of my favorite video game publishers, Devolver. They are known for publishing a lot of really great indie games. Their biggest well-known one is Hotline Miami 1 and 2. Those were their big sellers. They've also published games like Mother Russia Bleeds,
Broforce.
And this is probably their most recent. This is their latest release, their latest published game. That is it's getting a lot of press, and it's actually a lot of praise on how well this game is done.
I just played the opening level just like a second ago, and sorry, I got a text here.
You played the opening level, and you were blown away.
Yeah, I was actually really satisfied with how the game was made.
It makes you want to get a Switch, doesn't it?
Oh yes, it does actually. Yeah, if I played, I think I told you, like if I played this entire game, like the second level, I went through the first boss and fought this like leaf monster, and like every time when the leaves fly off of him, that's when you can hit him. But like one of the things that I really like, if I sat there and played the second level, I'd probably just sit there and play the entire game, and then like how this is going to end is I'm just going to go to the nearest Target, Walmart, or Best Buy or whatever and buy a Switch.
Yeah.
That's how good this game is. I mean, I know that you can get it on Steam, but I'd rather buy it on a portable system just so I can take it with me and stuff.
Yeah, it's actually really nice.
Yeah.
So this game is great. It's for those of you who don't know, it's actually starts off. There's two distinct art styles for it: 8-bit and 16-bit. It starts off as 8-bit, and at a certain point, it switches over to 16-bit for a certain reason. I'm not gonna spoil it because it's actually a story. It's a very clever story twist on why it switches to 16-bit. But I'll save that for you to play.
Yeah.
I would describe this as the 8-bit version as a kind of actually closer akin to Ninja Gaiden, the original NES games. But the way it's been designed, and you can tell that the developers of this game were very much fans and influenced by those games.
Particularly like Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah. I would say that they've kind of updated some of the quirks of Ninja Gaiden, especially the difficulty. This game is a bit difficult, but it's not impossible. I feel like a lot of the difficulty is not from how cheap enemies are, because the enemies are actually not very cheap in this game. It's more of the platforming and kind of stringing together your different movement combinations. Whether you have your gliding, your jumping, you're doing your cloud skip. I think it's called the cloud jump, which is actually a really cool concept. It's essentially it's a double jump that you have, but you can only get that double jump when you slash at something. So let's say there's a lantern above you. If you jump up and you slash at that, you get the cloud jump. And as soon as you slash it, you can double jump at that moment. And that secondary jump, you can actually constantly get it every time you hit something. So Let's say there's like 4 enemies. As long as you hit those enemies and jump each time, and you're jumping, hitting, you can cloud jump. You can cloud jump every single time you hit those enemies, which makes some really fun platforming and also some very frustrating platforming.
Yeah, I was trying to get used to those physics, and it took me a little bit. Sorry, just got this text message. Okay, it just it's weird. Like when I got it, I kind of understood it, but it took me a couple attempts because at least they give you a tutorial on how to do it, and like they give you a little safe area to test it out. And then when it actually happened, I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm kind of getting how this works." It's not like Shovel Knight where you're bouncing on them. You just have to kind of hit them, and then all of a sudden you earn this extra jump.
It's a very specific groove you kind of have to get into. It's more of a feeling. Once you figure out that feeling of how to do it, it's great. There's different abilities you get. Like I said, it starts off. It's very similar to a Ninja Gaiden game from the NES era, but not as difficult. You get different kind of. I haven't gotten too far into this. I actually just unlocked the 16-bit area of the game. But there are upgrades you get. You can increase your health. You can do like a slash, a downward slash during your wingsuit. There's different items you get. Like I said, you're gonna end up getting a wingsuit so you can glide. You end up getting a grappling hook, or I think in the game they actually call it a dart rope. And
rope.
Yeah, and that lets you hook onto walls or other little hooks, hook rings. You also end up getting. You can also climb walls like in Ninja Gaiden, and different things.
Crawl them too. Yeah.
Yeah, you can crawl and wall jump. The game plays really, really well. The platform is spot on. But again, you're gonna have to master how to each movement upgrade. Like I said, you're gonna have to combine different things like the grappling hook, the wingsuit, and your cloud jump together to traverse some of the areas. Very responsive controls. Chucking Dice, you were playing it. You actually really like the sword slash because it doesn't
I like how
feel,
it's just like a swing, and it's a swing back
it's like
and
a
forth.
sweep. Yeah. It's really, really great. But what I want to touch upon with this game is, one, the music is awesome. It's great. The 8-bit tracks are great. Really cool. There is one little thing that Chucking Dice was a little Easter egg that Chucking Dice was very, very satisfied with, going underwater.
Going underwater and the music just kind of sounding like you're underwater listening to
it.
Mutes, that's awesome.
It mutes the music when you're underwater. And then another cool thing is the art style. The art style is very much 8-bit and 16-bit, but I mean, it's great. I mean, there are so many cool, backgrounds. Enemy design is great. It's really cool package. Like I know I was talking to Chuck and Dice about this. I'm actually very, very satisfied with how many great platformers and Metrovania games are being put on the Switch. I mean, I always felt like those games were best played, on the go and portable mode. So this has been a treat for me. I've kind of gone a little crazy buying some of these games, but I can't recommend. I really want to talk more about The Messenger, but I don't want to eat up too much time because you really should really play this game. It's just that good. Just like at Dead Cells, like I said, this game is a little difficult, but I wouldn't say it's NES hard. It's actually doable.
No, it's a very, I would say, satisfying difficulty.
Yeah.
Where it's not too easy, because I died twice while playing it, and then I kind of learned what I'm supposed to do to proceed forward. And it wasn't like I wanted to throw down my controller kind of thing. It was just like, God damn it, and then you just kind of have to look at the situation.
Yeah.
I love the fact of the shop and how they can give you items that you can plan for, because when you go to the first store, you have an option to buy, a couple different things. Things are a bit more expensive than the other. They're these little powers, like the hitting projectiles, which is really important, and then the other one having some kind of ranged attack, which is the throwing stars. And they give you past that store, they give you that first enemy where that's appropriate to use. I think that's really great level design. It's a very simple thing to do. But because we grew up in an era where you played a lot of these 8-bit games, and to a certain extent 16-bit games as well, because there wasn't a lot of people who I guess they were new to developing them, or they didn't have time to develop them further or play test them. Like a lot of the back in the day, a lot of games were really frustratingly difficult, just because I guess the purpose is that people get their money's worth if they play a frustratingly difficult game, and it takes them forever to beat and master and such. But sometimes that became a little too ridiculous. And, you mentioned the right one to compare this game with is Ninja Gaiden. I love Ninja Gaiden. I've never beaten any of the Ninja Gaidens without cheating because they're really hard. And I know, when I play Ninja Gaiden 1, I know where I'm going to die and never get past because I haven't had a chance to master the other levels, or I'm not just good enough to play the game. But part of that is sort of the mechanics. It's that weird Castlevania mechanic when your guy gets hit and it gets thrown up, backwards, which I'm not a big fan of the games that do that. although I do play a lot of games, and I have mastered some games that have that mechanic, but I would prefer not to be there. But like, it just seems that like those games, became frustratingly bad because like, they have all these like limitations that they had to keep in mind, and maybe the game designers were kind of like not thinking about playability and more thinking about, well, we'll just put a bunch of like difficult blocks here, instant death spikes here, and just like mess with the game player's psyche because they're going to be so angry that they're going to be like biting on their controllers, which I often did on my old Nintendo. I would just like put it in my mouth, and like you could see like little teeth marks of where I was like biting my controller.
I would bend my SNES controller.
Oh really?
Yeah. I would bend it.
I would just put it in my mouth like a bar of soap almost.
I think I did that with my NES one too. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this game isn't very difficult. Honestly, it's not. I honestly feel that the difficulty with this game is having to master utilizing all the different kind of movement combinations you have there. And that's, I think that's just more of a testament to how well the game is designed and the platforming in it, like how well it's done. So, but definitely check it out. I mean, I'm having such a good time with it. So right now I'm torn between either Dead Cells or Messenger, but it's great.
I really dig Messenger. I mean, I haven't played Dead Cells yet, but I really dig Messenger because of that dialogue. That dialogue is so self-aware.
Oh yeah. So what's one thing? Thank you for bringing that. The writing on this game is amazing. It's hilarious. Specifically, you have a little demon imp that resurrects you every time you die. Essentially, it's the reason why you keep coming back. That thing, the dialogue he has is great. The shopkeeper that you run into is also hilarious. But it just adds so much more. It just adds to that the experience of this game being so good. So definitely check it out.
Yeah. So that's the Messenger. Sorry, I need to really do something here. Someone's like asking me for something. Can you text files?
You can Dropbox them. I think you can. You should be able to send a file.
Yeah.
Do you have the file attached to your phone?
Yeah, I mean, I have it in a Dropbox, but this guy's like trying to tell me, hey, can you text me the file? I'm like, I don't recall that you can do that.
I don't think you can actually send an actual file.
Yeah, I don't think you can. He's like asking for a PDF. I'm like, I don't know if you can do that at all.
You can email it. You can email a PDF. Why don't you email a PDF?
Actually, yeah, that'd probably be better.
Moving on.
I can't. Hold on. Can you talk about something? Actually, here, let me bring up. Well, shoot. Because like the next three things. Here, talk about Monsterpalooza.
Monsterpalooza. I actually never been to Monsterpalooza. But we are going to be attending Monsterpalooza on September 15th. That's a Saturday. They're having the Monsterpalooza at the Burbank. Is that a Marriott? Marriott, right?
It's a Marriott down.
Okay, so it's the Burbank Marriott right across the street from the Burbank Airport. September 15th. I actually think it goes on the entire weekend, or maybe just Friday and Saturday. So yeah, Monsterpalooza. It's a convention for horror fans. They got a lot of cool stuff. Like they have panels and merchandise you can buy. I know Chuck and Dice likes to go there to buy DVDs. Do they sell DVDs there?
They do sell DVDs. Some of them are like legit DVDs. Others are bootlegs because they haven't come out on a.
They haven't like officially. Been released.
They haven't been officially released. They only have like a VHS dupe of it, or maybe sometimes even a international one.
Mm.
It's just because they're not available, and you can't get them anywhere else, kind of thing. But I think those are a little bit more few and far between because more and more of these movies are being released now.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to Monsterpalooza. I've never been to one. I do like horror, so it'd be interesting to see what I get to see. There's also Monsterpalooza is also huge for the makeup effects industry. There's gonna be a lot of I imagine there's a lot of shops, right? There's a lot of like demonstrations.
There's a lot of schools and stuff like that.
Yeah, for visual effects and things like that. for makeup artists and things like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But we will be recording a special on the road episode of Cooperators for Monsterpalooza. Hopefully Vic can make it out. Maybe Vic can make it out. Vic, hopefully you can make it out. But yeah, I'm actually really, really looking forward to it. I'm surprised. I'm actually, the only thing I don't like about Monsterpalooza is because it's so close to where I live that people park in my block and take up residential parking. So that's kind of an annoying thing. But I won't have that problem because I can just walk. I'm close enough so I can walk to the convention center. But yeah, we'll see. Is there anything you're looking forward to in Monsterpalooza?
I mean, not really. I'm probably going to dress up just because, I did it last time.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm kind of into this weird, like, cosplay culture. So, it's pretty interesting. Because, like, some people have, like, I mean, obviously you'll have the people in Monsterpalooza wearing the stuff that is made by the makeup artists. But then you have all these other people who kind of create their own costumes who aren't really professional makeup artists and stuff like that. They just want to have fun. I'm trying to get Cotterman to come as Michael Myers and my friend Jorge to come as Dr. Loomis. Because my friend Jorge is bald and, like, all he needs is really a fake goatee, and he can wear, like, an overcoat, and I can give him, like, a toy revolver. And then Cotterman, he's 6 foot something or other, so he'd actually make a pretty good Michael Myers. He's a big guy. And then, we have this, like, group cosplay. I'm just going to dress up as Ash again. Maybe sans the Ash Ketchum hat and just be, Ash from Ash vs. Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2, sorry. Which yeah, that's the fun part for me. And then just kind of looking at things, and hopefully there's going to be some interesting guests. Let me bring up who's going to be there.
Special guests.
Yeah, this is tentative, obviously, because sometimes people have to cancel at the last minute.
Hey, it's Veruza Balk gonna be there.
She's always there, all the time. There's not been a Monsterpalooza I've been to where she hasn't been there.
Mindy Sterling.
Yeah. So if you don't know who Veruza Balk is, she's the girl from The Craft. She was also Dorothy in Return to Oz.
Mindy Sterling.
Who's from Austin Powers.
What about Annabeth Gish?
Annabeth Gish from The X-Files will be there. Also Mystic Pizza. Jake Busey from the new Predator film is going to be there. I believe... I
want to be friends with Jake Busey.
You got to meet his dad. Steve Dash, which is Jason from Friday the 13th.
Hey, Kim
13th
Coates.
Part 2. Kim Coates from... was it?
He's from Sons of Anarchy, but he came out on a few other stuff.
Oh, looks like he was on Resident Evil Afterlife. That's unfortunate.
And Mark Boone Jr.
Yeah. Brian Thompson, the alien bounty hunter from X-Files. Also Clag, one of the Klingons from Star Trek The Next Generation. Apparently he was on the Orville, which I don't remember which episode he was in.
Hey, Jeremy Davis and Lori Petty.
Lori Petty from Tank Girl, and was she the voice of Livewire on Superman?
I think she was.
Adventures? Yeah.
Brian Thompson has a very distinct like facial, like skull, like I don't know structure. Like he has a very distinct head.
Right. A distinct head.
Yeah, I mean, look at him. He just was just like.
Well, he's a big guy.
He is, right? Like he's huge, right? He's like just like. Is he like 6 foot something?
He's yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I've seen him, stand up like on. I think he was at either one of the Monsterpaloozas or Comic-Con or one of those things. And yeah, I think he's over 6 foot. I mean, he towers above. I was gonna call him Mulder, David Duchovny. But yeah, he's a big guy.
Isn't David Duchovny pretty tall?
Yeah, Thomas Jane's gonna be there.
Hell's yeah, Thomas
freaking Jane.
I love Tom Jane.
I love The Mist.
I want to talk to Tom Jane and ask him if he's looking. He just wants to get his children back.
Right. I like I like the scenes with him in Dreamcatcher.
Who else from the Predator movies is going to be there? For the Predator, I know Jake Busey is actually reprising his role. Did you know Jake Busey's character in the new Predator movie is Gary Busey's son from the Predator 2?
I do, yeah.
And I was like, that's cool as shit.
Yeah.
Like,
So
holy crap.
this is basically, this Predator movie coming out is officially a sequel and not a prequel or not a I don't understand what reboot is now, because I thought reboot just meant they just did everything over again, but
I hope Danny Glover makes an appearance in this new Predator movie.
Yeah, I hope he's in there, like, old
William Forsythe. Okay,
so one of my favorite things that William Forsythe did was the Untouchables series in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good stuff. If you like Boardwalk Empire, which actually William Forsythe was actually in Boardwalk Empire, you'd actually really enjoy him in the Untouchables 90s series as Al Capone. He's a really good Al Capone. Because that series kind of basically told two different stories. They told the story of Ellie Nets, and then they told the story of Al Capone, but they were both sympathetic protagonists. Obviously, Al Capone would go in the deep end and like start killing people. Like, and there's this one scene where he like just chops off this guy's fingers with an axe, and because it was syndication, you could show as much violence as you could. And like in terms of like, I guess, sexual content as well, he was having like orgies. Like, I mean, obviously they weren't showing nudity or anything like that, but he was like sleeping with a lot of hookers, which Al Capone did. Sybil Danning.
Why does her name sound familiar?
Because she was in The Howling 2, Battle Beyond the Stars, Caged Heat. I'm reading this thing right here.
Lance Hendrickson too.
Yeah, Lance Hendrickson. Oh, I met him. He's great. He's awesome. That guy's a great guy. He's always like really into meeting people and stuff like that. I read his biography or his autobiography that he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really good. I didn't know this, but he couldn't read, like when he was starting out as an actor.
Really, he couldn't read?
Yeah, he does. Well, I mean, I guess he could read a little bit, but like he actually was illiterate, and then he learned how to read.
That's cool.
Yeah. Lisa Loring, who was Wednesday Addams. People might know her because there's this like sort of viral video of her like dancing. It's this weird like shuffling dance. I think they call it, I forgot what the hell they called it, but it's her and Lurch dancing. It's a pretty funny scene. Just look up Wednesday Addams dancing. Joe Dante, one of my favorite horror directors. He also directed The Burbs.
I thought Joe Dante died.
No, he's still alive.
Huh. Who am I thinking of then? I think I'm thinking of somebody else.
No. John Landis is still alive as well.
Maybe. Wait.
Wes Craven's dead.
Okay.
Mackenzie Westmore. I didn't know that. Don't know her. She's in Star Trek Insurrection, apparently.
James Duvall.
There's a bunch of people I don't know. Oh, look at that. The guy from Silent Night, Deadly Night. Punish. And then the guy from Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. Taking out the garbage. Garbage Day.
Nice.
Eric Freeman.
Does he still do it?
Probably. That's like the worst sequel ever. Robert Brian Wilson, who plays the original killer, I mean, he was the one who goes, punish, naughty, and saying stuff like that while he's like chopping people's heads off. Whereas Eric Freeman was the guy who just kind of shot people and cackled. Canceled due to work. Tom Holland. Oh, that's a pity. That's the Fright Night guy. But at least he's working, guys.
Yep. It's actually not bad.
Yeah, it's not a bad guest list. I mean, obviously they're probably going to be charging, for autographs and stuff like that. But sometimes they'll have a. Oh, look, they have events there. Sometimes they'll have screenings as well.
How are the screenings?
I saw one thing there. Like, okay, so they're actually, yeah, no, that was a different convention. But at Monsterpalooza, me and Jorge, we decided to go see a screening of a short. And when we went to go see it, in terms of like makeup and effects, it's about like these like fish people that's hunting down this woman. But it's like one of those things where like the movie sort of already happened, and we're just kind of getting the climax, and like it like kind of transitioned to a person just like what was it? What do they do? It transitioned to a person where she meets up with like the fish people. They kind of just sort of look at her, and then they sort of kind of leave after that. And I was like, I don't get what happened. I don't know what the story. I mean, the costumes looked really cool, the fish people, but it was like sort of like a didn't really say anything, and like it's really hard to, I guess, tell a story in a short. But it's possible. Some people just kind of use the short as an opportunity to kind of like do a tech demo of what they can do with like visual effects and stuff like that, and that's fine. But like, you know, this thing was kind of being advertised. Oh, this is amazing short by these like, you know, industry professionals who are trying to make this, you know, I guess bigger picture or whatever. And I went to go see it. I'm like, you know, really didn't really do anything for me. I didn't see a potential story there. It seemed like, yeah, just like you took a piece out of the movie, and like it just had no reference of anything really. So I mean, I guess like I didn't really have the best of reactions or whatever to what they screened, but you know, I haven't seen everything that they've screened. I did see one time we picked up like a card or whatever, one of those like sort of I guess a leaflet, and it said like he's like, get your opportunity to watch the sequel to Into the Blue. Was it? No, not Into the Blue. It was
Deep Blue Sea.
Is that the one with Samuel L. Jackson?
Yeah, where he gets eaten by a shark.
Deep Blue Sea 2. And like meet the cast afterwards. And we're just looking at this like sequel to Deep Blue Sea.
Don't they kill all the sharks?
Like, well, it's just, we were just kind of wondering. It's like who wants to watch that? I mean, I don't know. Like I think the one thing that made Deep Blue Sea, I guess, watchable was it had Samuel L. Jackson, and it was kind of a neat story. But like, you know, I wasn't chomping at the bit like, oh, I hope they continue this.
Yeah.
It's no Tremors, but a few things are. Okay, so let's move on here. I finally have myself free. I'm going to talk about a little bit about Wadget Eyes' new game called The Unavowed, or Unavowed. What this game is, it's typically like, you know, what's seen as you know, an adventure game. You control a character. There's puzzles to solve. There's an investigation. In this case, The Unavowed is about a group of characters that call themselves the Unavowed, and what they do is investigate demon possession and demon interactions with humanity, because like obviously when a demon's involved, then something's bad's going to happen. So they basically, you go in and you investigate these little strange happenings, very similar to, I guess, like almost like an X-Files meets, I guess, you know, supernatural type situation. You meet like different types of like demons too, and some demons aren't totally evil. Some of them are just like, you know, extra dimensionals. They don't belong in our dimension, and they're trying to get their, you know, way back home. But you can exploit these demons to do things. One of the unique things about this game is that you can choose a party. So you're not just relegated to one adventurer. You can actually get, I think, you can pick from 4 different characters, like basically two characters to add to with your main character. And your main character can be a man or a woman. You could actually create your own character, which is kind of cool, because most of these adventure games you're just playing as, you know, already like built character that has his own background and stuff like that.
Your typical white male protagonist.
Yeah, and then in Unavowed, you can be a woman character or a male character who really looks like Reggie Fils-Aimé, the Nintendo guy. He looks exactly like Reggie Fils-Aimé, which is sort of weird. Because I'm just walking around, I want to tell people like about the new releases on the Switch, but I can't. Text me Angel screenshots. Okay. but the game is pretty unique in gameplay, and is what? All right, I don't know why this guy's. Don't you hate when you have people who like have technology in front of them, but they don't care to like learn how to use it? I'm talking about my friend Bert. I'm actually house sitting for him right now. I'm just gonna talk about him. Bert's a producer, and he doesn't know how to work anything. He's worked for this company called Whitewater Productions. For a person who the person who owns that is Rick Rosenthal. He also doesn't know how to use technology. Why does he need this? I'm sorry. I need to get off for a second. We can't, really, because then I have to strip them together. So, I don't know.
Here, I'll keep talking.
All right.
Let's talk about the birds and the bees. I have no idea what the hell the birds and the bees are. I feel like the birds and the bees needs to be changed to watering the plant.
Watering the plant?
Yeah. I got nothing. So this looks kind of cool, actually. This Unavowed.
Yeah. Just to add to that, sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. But one of the things that you actually can do is the reason why you can choose this party is because the creator of this game basically based it on one of BioWare's RPGs. I think it was either Mass Effect or Knights of the Old Republic, where you can create your own party. And when you create your own party, they actually have different reactions to the situation. So you could potentially, there's a lot of replay value, which is not really that prevalent in adventure games. It's like when you play an adventure game, you basically beat it, and there's like not much you can do beyond that. Whereas in here, you can play as these characters, and then you can choose a different party to handle that situation, and it'll unlock a whole different realm of like dialogue and ways you can actually solve a puzzle. There's not just one way to get it past a door. There's actually several different ways, and depending on who you choose, will kind of like either make it more difficult or make it easier. So, for example, you have a person who's a guy who can talk to ghosts. And like he actually has a sort of like a ghost familiar that hangs around him. The ghost can actually pass through doors and like kind of give you like a sort of a recon of what's beyond that door or whatever. Or you can use a person who can shoot fire from his hands, or a person of this woman who has a sword in her hands. It's just like it gives you more different possibilities than the average adventure game where you're just using one character to solve all this stuff. Also, what's really cool too is that once you save, say, like a wayward demon who didn't really mean any harm, they can actually be very helpful at the end of the game. I don't want to really spoil the entire plot, because there is a really cool twist in the game where your character is not what it seems. And when they reveal it, I was really surprised, and I was really invested into that game when it happened. So, like, if you like really good story-oriented games, this is a very huge story-oriented game. Also, you can choose your own like background of your character. He or she can either be a cop, a bartender, or an actor. So, and depending on which three that you choose, you actually will get a different story. So, I do highly recommend this game if you like adventure games. Even if you don't like adventure games, this is probably a good one to start with.
Maybe I should check it out because I don't really like adventure games.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of cool because
Too much adventure.
There's too much adventure. I mean, I like adventure games because one of the things that I really dig about them is that, you know, it's not that Twitch gaming like, you know, how we saw in those, like, you know, the 2D platformers where you always have to be on, your concentration needs to be on. This is more of like a game where you can basically think about it. What's going to be your next move? It's almost like playing chess. You're just like kind of figuring out like, how do I get out of this, you know, problem with the implements I have in my possession? Like, how do I, you know, talk to this person? Should I be aggressive? Should I be understanding? Should I, you know, be somewhere in between? And like, it gives you that opportunity to do that. It's kind of like how Telltale Games, you know, does their sort of like dialogue trees. And you know, it's just that part of RPG that you don't really get from an RPG video game. And like an RPG video game, you're just kind of like doing turn-based battles or even like real-time battles. But I feel that you don't get really that story. But then there are other RPGs that do embrace that. For example, Knights of the Old Republic. But that's that. Let's move on. Speaking of games, if you aren't aware, we talked about this before when they were just a mere Kickstarter, but the NES Maker is out, and you can actually now purchase it if you so desire and create your own NES game without needing to know how to do lines of code. Basically, the people of 8-Bit Heroes decided to create this because they created their own adventure game. And when I say adventure game, I mean NES adventure game. So that would just be the Legend of Zelda style game. Like, it's a top-down. You have a HUD. You have enemies to battle. You have an overworld. You have an underworld kind of thing. You don't have to make it exactly like Zelda, but it gives you the idea of how that template works. So this makes it so that you're actually creating sort of templates of enemies. You can make your own character. You can create levels. You're doing level design. You can, like, you know, assign text dialogue to certain characters. I haven't gotten into it. I actually donated to the Kickstarter, and they're actually, you know, just released it. So I think I did enough to get the software to make it, the flash cart thing where you can actually plug into a physical cart that has like a flash drive, so that you can actually put into a normal Nintendo, whether it be a top-down or a toaster style. You can also you also get, what I got was also sort of like a tutorial on how to make the game as well. Or basically, yeah, like a sort of written tutorial, which they haven't released yet. They have released videos, which are like 3 hours long, and they're free, and you can basically learn how to make a game. They have a little commercial out with different people making games, and they have like no knowledge of code. They even have children doing it as well. I think the biggest thing is that you just have to kind of learn the interface. And then after you learn the interface and, you know, basically the logic of how to make a game, it will come easy. Because like I did watch 7 videos that they used to just show how the interface worked. And it doesn't seem too hard. It seems like you just kind of have to keep on doing it until you kind of just figure it out. Like with anything that you use on a computer.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it seems like a lot of fun. And like I'm kind of looking forward to making it because I want to make a game that's a horror-based game. I've been watching a lot of the Conjuring movies, which I actually find really entertaining. I've never actually watched The Conjuring.
I watched the first one, and I thought it was really good. I never watched the second one, though.
I like the second one better than the first one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's a lot more fun.
Wait, is the second one the one in the house?
No, the first one's the one in the house. The second one is actually in England. And I've been studying up on those two, what's called the Warrens, Lorraine and Ed Warren. They're obviously different from their cinematic counterparts, but I do like the characters of the Warrens in those film because like it's like they're protagonist characters that are interesting and they have their own storyline going, And like kind of like watching the first and second film, you see sort of a growth of those characters as well. But yeah, those films were surprisingly really good, and I think I'm trying to use that as a basis to create like my version of a game. I'm gonna make Beckles the main character.
Yeah,
Beckles is a friend of ours. Gonna try and make him like a professional paranormal investigator.
Totally do it.
Yeah, it totally screws it up and makes it even worse. Just kidding, Beckles. I mean, not really, because sometimes you do make everything worse. God damn it, Beckles. But yeah, I'm trying to like do that because there are very few horror games on the NES, the original NES. I mean, the ones that I can name were based on properties like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. The others are Castlevania, which I don't know. I wouldn't call that a horror game. I guess it's a cool platformer.
Yeah.
No Resident Evil or Silent Hill. And then there's Sweet Home, which didn't get released out here, but they ended up doing a translation. It's more of an RPG style. But yeah, I wanted to kind of make like a top-down version of I don't know, say like a Silent Hill or a Resident Evil style game.
Yeah. What?
Nothing.
Sorry, I haven't had a coffee today, so I'm like it's really hard for me to. I'm not saying you're boring. Just say like right. I'm really just.
You're out of it. Seems like
I'm very out of it. Sorry.
But so I mean, if you had this tool, what kind of game would you make?
I mean, well, how would you even go about making like what would you do? What kind of horror game? Like how would you make the horror game in Nintendo and then like a Nintendo version though?
Well, I would make it take place in like somewhere where it's like claustrophobic, like a house. Okay. Like in The Conjuring, like a house.
Now, would you just have the character walking around, picking items up?
Yeah, picking items up. Like they'll maybe not like in Zelda where you're just like, here you go.
Would you have combat?
You're in the game.
Like, would you have combat, or would you have more things like, okay, hide under the bed and let the ghoul like move around, and then? I
think with a game like this, you would want to do more combat oriented style. Mm-hmm. But there's a way where you can do it where it's maybe like give the person limited ammo. Yeah. Or give a person like a limited time to kill something, or something will happen, like your character dies. I mean, as obviously is the obvious choice. But like you kind of build to that moment when you do have to do combat. Kind of like how in Resident Evil 7, where you really aren't doing combat, you're just hiding, and then eventually you start getting the ability to do combat. Obviously, you can't really do that, as intricate in something like the NES, but you can take the essence of that and kind of build from there.
I kind of feel like that's kind of the one thing with horror games is if you are gonna have a horror game where you're gonna have combat, you really need to kind of hit that sweet spot of, at the beginning, like, do you want the person to become much more powerful later on, and so now there's not as much anxiety facing things because you can do more damage, you can survive it. Or do you want to keep the anxiety? Do you want that kind of horror game where you have the anxiety high the whole time? Because that can also be exhausting. I mean, I've played horror games where, actually, perfect example, Outlast. I never finished Outlast because the anxiety of it being a horror game and things just like not being able to do any kind of combat and just having to hide or run. The anxiety of it's too much for me, so it gets tiring. It gets very, very tiring after a while. Like I here's actually an even better example of the Penumbra series. The first Penumbra was you were able to do combat, but it was a lot of hiding and moving around. But you can at least damage things, which was.
Does it recall you can like throw a rock or something?
You can throw rocks. You actually had a pickaxe and you can attack things. Right. I mean, it took forever for you to kill something, but you can actually kill them. So a lot of in the beginning is you actually had these wolves coming after you, so you can actually kill them.
Yeah, I remember doing that
the second one though. The second one you were hiding, and because you were getting attacked by these like diseased or possessed monsters. Yeah. And I remember just feeling really, really tired after finishing that game because my anxiety was so high. Like you were constantly hiding, and then the third game was great because it was just puzzle solving. It was just one big. You were just solving puzzle to puzzle. So that's kind of the difficult thing with the horror game, especially on the NES.
I think what you have to do is like, you know how in Zelda you get your little wooden sword in the first cave that you see, and it leads you there. I mean, you know, but let's say like you just move the sword over a couple boards, and then you have to go through all those Octorocks and what are they called, Tektites?
Yeah.
That way, you know, it shows you, okay, well, like let me walk up to this monster, and it just hurts you.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you know, you don't want to be hit by that monster again.
Gotcha.
So what you're going to do is, like, trying to run away. And then, like, maybe let's kind of lead the character to run to a cave.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a guy there, and it's like, oh, you want the shotgun? It's dangerous out there. Shoot someone with a shotgun. But maybe you give it an ammo range, so that way, you know, you can't exactly kill every single thing on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just kind of build it from there. Like, you know, all of a sudden you have a lot of ammo and you're like killing all these monsters left and right. Then you encounter something that your gun doesn't work on, or it takes more than one shot.
I think to have my choice, I think I'd probably make a game similar to like The Messenger. But I would do that with the games that I enjoyed playing, but they weren't as hard. So
yeah,
I would make like a Ninja Gaiden game, but it wasn't so difficult. But it had like really funny writing. Or to make like a you know, like a Castlevania game, like a action horror adventure, like action horror game like that, but it wasn't as difficult. Like you can actually get through it.
Right.
So I probably would just remake some of those games and just tone down the difficulty.
You know, one of the big things that people do today is ROM hacking, and that's when they take like an old game like Castlevania or Legend of Zelda or any like Mega Man or whatever, and then they basically take the template of the game, rearrange things, or even change things completely, and then create a new game of that. But I guess there's there's just this sort of like, a lot of people call it somewhat of a lazy trend, where they just make the game extremely harder. And I do get the sentiment of that, because you're making it for a person who's already beaten the original game many times, and they can just breeze right through it. But with that being said, it's kind of, I feel it's kind of self-defeating doing that, because like no one wants to just to play a harder game. They want to play a different game. Like if you compare two games, for example, you compare Mega Man 1 and 2. I mean, essentially in its heart, it's the same game, but in the second game, there are things that make it different. You have that rocket sled, or that, you know, that I think it's like a wall crawling platform, or a platform with little propellers underneath you that you can shoot to like kind of create your own platforms, and you can use those kind of potential items to pass through parts of the level that would otherwise be a lot harder if you just went and tried to do it, you know, just straight away. And like there's like, I guess, what is there? There's 6 bosses in the first Mega Man, whereas there's 8 bosses in Mega Man 2. And it's just like, it's a lot more fun to play Mega Man 2, because you have all these like different options, and there's also different, you know, more unique level design as well. I think the same thing goes with like, you know, Castlevania 2 and Castlevania 3, where, you know, obviously Castlevania 1 is a straight up just, you know, sort of fast-paced game, whereas Simon's Quest, Castlevania 2, is more of a roaming RPG that's very similar to something that Symphony of the Night did, but much better than the original Castlevania, or I'm sorry, better than the Castlevania 2. It's a different game, definitely, but it's also a very long-winded game, and also a lot of the hints that are given in that game are just very obscure. Yeah. So in Castlevania 3, they went back to that sort of fast-paced action game. Sorry, did I say Castlevania 2? Castlevania 3, they went back to that fast-paced action game, but you can have branching paths, and then you can pick up like a companion that you can travel with, and like they have different abilities that help them get past the level much faster than Trevor Belmont. They're always doing something to change the game a little bit. I don't think they necessarily make the game harder though. Mm-hmm. They're not making it more impossible for a person to try and play that game. And I think that this is really the trick, is that if you're going to do like you know, that's why I think this will kind of like help maybe inspire the ROM hacking community to like lean away from just making a very hard version of Castlevania, because Castlevania is already a hard game. Ninja Gaiden's already a hard game. Double Dragon's already a hard game. You don't need to make those games much harder, because you're only playing to an audience of a person who only played that game and had the ability to beat it so bad that they don't need to try anymore. Whereas here, you're making a completely new game. You can, be inspired by those old games, like The Messenger and Dead Cells. You can make a game like that, but you don't necessarily have to make it like balls hard impossible to play. Okay, I gotta call Bird after this. But it's going to be really interesting. They're going to come out with different modules. One of them is going to be platforming. Another one's going to be RPG, and another one will be I think a shooter. A lot of people have been asking, "Hey, can we like cross can we make maybe an RPG that goes into a shooting mechanic?" And they say that, well, if you manipulate the code, you can actually do it. But even with like the module that you have, you can be pretty darn creative with it, which I don't really understand what that statement means. I mean, I wonder if it's where you can just take a piece of the module and put it into another one. But that's kind of an interesting concept. Playing an RPG that like goes into a shooter combat style would be kind of cool. That way, you're not doing just turn-based RPG. But yeah, it seems like a very handy tool to have if you're like into, wanting to design your own game, but you just don't have that coding knowledge to do it. Obviously, there are other design tools that you can use. You can use what's that big one, that like Visual Novel Game Maker, or there's one Unity. You can actually use Unity to make your own game, and Unity is actually free. They're a little bit more in depth too. But this one is a little bit more basic. So, if you're doing the old NES mechanics, you don't need to, like, I guess, think as hard as creating, like, all these variables. There's only very few variables. There's fewer variables in an old NES game than there is in modern day gaming.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I'm looking at opening through some more.
I would actually wouldn't mind making an RPG that wasn't so grind heavy, honestly. Yeah. Because I really want to like turn-based RPGs, but I hate the grind.
Yeah. How would you kind of like solve that sort of because that's the thing is like, I think that's the big thing that people don't like about RPGs, like even up to the today, where you're just kind of wandering a forest, just killing animals.
Mm. I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it's hard to say. How would you even make an RPG like that? Like,
would you make it like goal oriented? Like, get to this place, and then all of a sudden your character will get stronger. Or he'll pick up something that'll make him a little bit stronger, and that'll make you be able to go through this forest. But you also have to kind of create that jeopardy as well, that you might die.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I don't know how you go about. I'm trying to think of an RPG game that I actually enjoyed, like. That was either, not necessarily turn-based, but that was actually, like, enjoyable to play. I mean, I guess for me, RPGs come down to the actual combat. If the combat is turn-based, I tend to kind of get really turned off by turn-based.
Because it's very, like, deliberate.
Yeah,
like,
but if it's more of an action RPG, like if it like a Bioware action game, like an action RPG game, like
where
Bioware.
you just kind of pause the action, like change the stance of your character.
Yeah, or like it's more real time. Like I prefer the real time. Like I can like Mass Effect, like I can shoot, like it's a third person shooter, or like Knights of the Republic, where I had even though I was doling out commands, it was at least something I can do it in real time. I can pause the action, queue up my commands, but then still go in and adjust them on the fly. So it's weird. I mean, I think just for me, when it comes to RPGs, it comes down to the combat.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the big thing.
I really don't like turn-based.
Yeah, I like turn-based games because I've played them for so long, and like to me, it's like that weird. It's almost like reading a book at your own pace kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes I'm really bad at what they call Twitch style games, where you're just like need to do. You have to hit your D-pad a billion times, and you have to jump around and dodge enemies. I guess like normal Ninja Gaiden style. I like that kind of gaming, but sometimes I'm just like, dude, I just need to relax, and I need to use my brain for a little bit, but not in the way where it's trying to figure out problems at work. It's more like I want to figure out how to save, the land of Hyrule or something like that, or Dissidia, or
Yeah.
whatever the Final Fantasy place is called. And like sometimes like turn-based RPGs kind of give you that relaxed state. You're still doing combat, but it's not as intense. And I do get why people don't like that either. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I like Earthbound is because like it takes it to a level where the combat is there and like the mechanics aren't the best, but there are some points to it that I really enjoy. But it's how people view the game, I guess. You give an interesting point. I want to know how to do an RPG where it's not turn-based. There is that one game, was it Star Ocean? No, I'm sorry, Chrono Trigger. I mean, was that turn-based?
It was.
But it wasn't, kind of thing.
It was like a weird kind of like real-time turn-based. Like, you still did commands, but I don't remember. I actually don't remember.
What was that one? I guess Star Ocean.
Are you thinking of Secret of Mana?
You know what? Yeah, I think that's it. Secret of Mana.
So Secret of Mana had this cool. Actually, I didn't play Secret of Mana until I got the SNES Mini, and I actually did like the combat on that, which was
you have an open field. You're fighting.
You were fighting and you were button mashing, but it was you had a time. If you spammed your attack button too much, your attacks weren't very powerful because you weren't using like your full. You were losing too much stamina.
Yeah.
So you really had to get like a rhythm going with the combat. So like you would attack, let it rest for a little bit, build up your stamina, and then attack again so you can get the full damage of your attack. As opposed to like every time you were spamming it, your stamina bar would be low, and it was just like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, as opposed to
like 10 or 20 or 30.
As opposed to like 10 and then wait like 2-3 seconds, 10, 2-3 seconds, 10. So you had to like there was a rhythm to it, which I actually really enjoyed. I'm actually kind of that's Secret of Mana is probably one of those games that I should probably revisit, like maybe on my 3DS or something.
I'm a big fan of the game before it was Secret of Mana. It was released out here as Final Fantasy: The Adventure, which was for Game Boy at the time. But then it kind of like splintered off to become what is known as the Secret of Mana series. And one of the things I dug about that is what you were talking about. There was a little bar where you just have to kind of wait until it builds up. And then that's when you can attack your enemy. I think that's kind of cool because it's sort of the same way how sort of turn-based works. It awards patience, I guess, and it awards a strategy.
Yeah,
but it's that ability to kind of move around. And
which one was this one again?
This is a Final Fantasy Adventure. Which
that's right. I think we were talking about this, and you said like you actually enjoyed this a lot more.
Yeah, I enjoyed that style a lot more.
This is the Game Boy one.
Yeah, this is a Game Boy one. It is my favorite Final Fantasy game.
Is this on the Virtual Shop?
I don't know if it's in the Virtual Shop. I have not checked because I think you know what? No, I don't think it's on there because if it was, I would have owned it. If it's on there now, then obviously I'm mistaken. But I've been playing a ROM version of it on my PSP, and I never played this in my youth when I owned a Game Boy, but I really wish I did because I would have gotten a kick out of it. It's a game where I enjoyed. Like the other game I could say that's very similar to it is Link's Awakening, which I love. Link's Awakening, like. It's a combination of Twin Peaks and Zelda. Actually,
me and you were probably like very big proponents of Link's Awakening.
It's such a great game.
It is.
And it's such a trippy ending. Whereas like the Final Fantasy Adventure, I like a little bit better because you can get different types of weapons. And then if you can't use the same weapon. It's not like you get this one weapon and it's stronger than the others. It's like that to a certain extent. But then you can get like different types of weapon. You can get a weapon that kind of swings around you. You can get an axe that just does a chop, but you can chop trees with it. Chopping trees is like one of the best things about playing a game. We know a guy who was amazed the fact that he could chop trees in the newest Zelda game, which that's a weird thing to look at. Look at this! I can chop a tree. it reminds me of that Simpsons where he was like,
oh, the yard simulator, the virtual yard simulator, when they're like. Oh, I want to go try that, and they're like, "You can do that stuff at home." But like, yeah, it's not in a virtual world or something.
Right. No, it was the bird drinking water.
Oh yeah. It's like the bird drinking water.
That's amazing. Like Homer's looking at it. Oh look, it's going back and getting it again. Like he's like impressed with this like bird drinking water. But anyways, what episode was that? But like it was just this really cool game where we can switch out weapons, and certain weapons work better with some bosses than other weapons. Some weapons don't hurt enemies at all, but if you use this one specific weapon that you thought was useless, all of a sudden becomes really useful because it can actually beat another enemy later on in the game. The only thing I think is bad about that game is there's no overworld map, and it can't because you can't tell where you're going sometimes. And I think that was my complaint about like most old Nintendo games that had a very big world, is that I don't know where the hell I'm going.
Yeah, that was the problem. That's the problem with those.
Yeah, like the original Zelda game. I was playing on. I have an NES Classic now. Hooray! They're available everywhere now. But I was like, you know what? I haven't played original Zelda in such a long time. Let's put it in. And I forgot how it just throws you in that world, and you're just like,
no direction.
No direction. And like using, just my nostalgia goggles, I remembered where the first level is. I totally skipped the second level, went to the third level because it was closer. And I'm like looking around like, I don't know where the hell the second level is. I had to look it up because, yeah, I'm old and I don't have enough patience to do this. And like, where they put that second level is really odd.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't expect it to be there. You would expect where the third level is. That's where it should be. But it's like up into like this weird, part of the map. And like, I'm not going to say it's not a fun game. It's still a fun game, but I just wish there was a little bit more directions than that.
Yeah.
Like some insight rather than here. There you go.
They're like, just walk around.
Yeah, just walk around.
But there's people who love that though. There's people who just like, okay, we love that.
Yeah.
I kind of
it's open world.
I mean, for me, for me, honestly, I kind of need a bit of direction sometimes.
Right. I mean, you can have your small little directions, and it can say you need to go this town. But, on the way, maybe you can take like some detours and stuff, and like maybe there are some side quests. I don't know how deep you can do that on an NES game. But, maybe you can do a little bit of exploring. But eventually you do have to go to that town because that'll, like, drive the story forward. And that's what I like, is, like, I like having this main story and having a little bit of ability to explore around and kind of get to know my surroundings. But sometimes people just like, here you go. Go do stuff. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. Do anything.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. Just make the driving like your favorite driving game, Deadly Premonition.
Oh, gosh.
I remember you texting me and telling me how the driving was just like horrible in that game.
The driving on Deadly Premonitions is basically Twin Peaks, the video game. It's got an investigator, a murdered beloved girl is found dead somewhere, and it has a quirky town. And you know what? All those games make it a really cool game. The only problem is that you have to drive, and like all the places you have to go to are like on different sides of the map, and it sucks driving a car in that game. It's not like, what's it called? Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which I thought was the easiest way to drive a car, even though you smash into a whole bunch of stuff, but that's the fun about that game. It's just like weird. Like, I don't know why driving is so weird to me when I do it in a video game. Is it because like it's not like real driving?
Yeah.
Pretty much. I feel that the same way with Guitar Hero. I can actually play a guitar. I'm not very good at it, but I know how to play it. But when I play Guitar Hero, it's like, this is not how you play guitar. You don't strum and... I mean, I guess you sort of press buttons, but to me, you were trying to create chords, not try to hit the beat of the buttons. But, that's just me. I like to do things real. I don't like playing Madden. I don't like playing football either. I'm gonna make a Madden style game.
I want to be these raccoons, just like lounging around, eating stuff off their stomachs.
We're watching a little GIF.
I want to be a raccoon. I want a pet raccoon.
I don't think you can have a pet raccoon. Is that illegal?
No, they're too they can carry rabies.
Mm.
They're too wild. You can't. It's hard to domesticate a raccoon.
One time when we were in Bert's backyard, a skunk came up, and like it got dangerously close to us.
As long as it didn't spray you.
Oh, its tail went up and aimed at us, and
really?
we were just like, "What the hell do we do?" And like I don't know. And then eventually it lost interest and like went the other way, and like we just like one of the things I think scares it away is that if you turn on some lights, and like what happened was he has these like solar lights out there that just kind of went out, but the lights above the table were still on. But I guess that was enough for the the skunk to just kind of start wandering, and then he started wandering towards us. And we're just like, I don't know what to do when a skunk's around. It's like, do we stand still? Do we make eye contact? What the hell do we do? Like, do we throw shit at it? And like we had our phones on us and we're trying to like look on the internet to figure it out. But they were just telling us how bad it stinks. I hate when you look up the internet and they have no helpful thing to say. Like one of my favorite.
Isn't that the majority of the internet?
Just the majority of the internet. Like okay, so let's say you're playing a video game and something happens and it just glitches out on you. And you just say, oh, I'm playing, we'll say like the Messenger, and every time I get this item, it glitches out. And you get that one person who basically responds to you first to say, that's never happened to me. And you're just like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks for giving me your 2 cents, asshole.
Yeah.
You are not helpful. Anyone who's encountered this, please help. And then maybe eventually you get a person who like says, oh, you don't have the latest patch or whatever. But like that person who goes, it's never happened to me. That's never happened to my game. I'm just congratulations. You useless son of a bitch. What are you looking at now?
The raccoons. I can't stop looking at those raccoons.
That's never happened to me when I looked at raccoons.
That's the best thing about the internet is if it didn't happen to somebody, it never happened.
It never happened at all.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't.
So you said this is out, right?
This is out now. You can buy it. Please buy it because these guys went through a lot of trouble to create this thing. And if you always loved Nintendo games and you always kind of wanted to give your hand on creating a Nintendo game, this is the way to do it right now because it gives you an interface. It gives you templates. You can create your own characters. I don't think it gives you monster like pixel templates, but
do they have a trial?
I don't know if they have a trial. I don't think they do. Maybe they do. I don't know. You'd have to go to the website. I'll have the description below for all these things that we're talking about where it leads you to the website and you can take a look at what they have to offer. I don't think it really is that expensive. I think they're like selling it for $20 or something like that. You know what?
You know what you can get for $20?
What's that?
The Messenger.
The Messenger? That game's already made.
On your Nintendo Switch. Oh, wait, you need to go get a Nintendo Switch.
I need to get a Nintendo. That's like, what, $300?
Yeah. Is it $299? I think it is $299.
Yeah, it's $299. I do shop kicks, and I've earned enough where I can get $100 worth of gift certificates.
Shop kicks?
Yeah. Shop kicks is this little app where you can like basically walk into stores and it'll give you points. And if you scan certain merchandise, you can get more points. And if you buy the merchandise, you even get more points.
So it's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, pretty much. Because I was located in my previous workplace before our company moved, we were located next to a strip mall. So every day I was walking up and down the stores, scanning items and getting walking kicks and stuff like that, which I guess they don't really think about. That if you kind of live live or work near a place where you can easily do that, you can go every day to earn points. And I just hoarded the points. It's almost as if I was playing an RPG. I was like basically grinding. And then all of a sudden, and this is not the first time I've reached $100. This is actually the second time I've reached $100.
Try to reach $100 again so you can buy it for.
No, I'm past actually $100. I'm like $150 at this point.
There you go. You can buy your Switch.
I could. Last time I bought one of those portable air conditioners with a little tube that you can put in the window and you can roll it around and stuff. That's been really helpful in my apartment. Not as much as
it's been hot as balls lately.
Yeah, it's been very hot. I don't know how much this thing costs, but
check it out.
Check it out. You should get it.
I'm gonna make a remake of Chex Quest.
Quest.
That free Doom. It basically was like a Chex mix. It's a Chex reskin of Doom, and you were like Chex Man or Chex Master, and you were like zapping boogers.
What?
Check out Chex Quest. They
Chex,
actually
like the Chex Mix.
yeah,
Really?
Chex Quest. They Chex Mix. The Chex cereal included a game called Chex Quest, and it was pretty much a first-person shooter with the Chex guy, with the Chex
There was a Chex
character.
guy.
Yeah, but it was like kid friendly. It was actually a really cool game.
Oh, it was an adult Chex guy, like
Yeah.
Andrew Dice Clay kind of style.
Yeah, no. It was actually really.
Dickory Dock.
God damn! Whatever happened to Andrew Dice Clay?
He got a reality show. That's what happened.
Didn't he get banned from a bunch of comedy clubs because he was just being an asshole?
Probably. I mean, I never really found him that funny, but I guess other people did. He's like a weird East Coast humor, I guess.
I'd rather watch Andrew Dice Clay than fucking see Louis C.K. come back up on stage.
Louis C.K. Oh, the masturbating dude comedian.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was never into his set either. Even before the masturbation part. I think after the masturbation part, I was more interested.
Because you wanted to see him masturbate, or just because you were just like,
I was
what's
just
the...
like, oh yeah, I like that. That guy's weird.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I like the humor that I like is like talk show humor.
Mm.
Just because I like when people have guests and they're like asking questions and they become really silly. You know who I liked the most though? Craig Ferguson. That guy was awesome. It's a pity that he doesn't have a show anymore.
I remember he interviewed the maker of Minecraft.
Yeah.
Marcus Pearson or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was the most boring like interview ever. Like Craig Ferguson was trying to get him to talk, but
Yeah.
the dude just didn't want to talk or wasn't talking. Like,
Or he just had
he
a
was just-
personality that
yeah,
just
like
doesn't
his
have-
personality that doesn't like
Yeah.
really like to do like small talk or whatever. And it was painful to watch it, but it was also great to see Craig Ferguson trying to get this guy to like open up and talk to him about things.
He did. I think Wilford Brimley. He had him on a show.
Really?
They're almost the same thing, but it ended with like you know how Craig Ferguson has a thing at the end where he says we're gonna have an awkward pause or play a mouth organ, which is a harmonica, and I think there's I don't know what the third thing is. It's just this weird thing that he does at the end of the interview.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess Wilford Brimley's like says like, "Oh, let me take a look at that mouth organ." So he hands him the harmonica, and if you're able to play the harmonica, you basically get this like award, and you can legitimately play it like you have to play a song. You actually get this legitimate award of a golden harmonica, which is actually a really nice harmonica. It's like apparently like a high end version of it, but it's also like I guess plated in gold. I don't know if it's real or not. But Wilford Brimley like took it, and then just kind of went. But he took it and he played it, and he basically was able to play it. Like he played, was it Old Susanna?
Mm-hmm.
Like just perfectly. And then he's just like, Trevor was like, just bring it out, and like he handed him, and like the entire like interview, Wilford Brimley was just like a crotchety old man.
And then when he got
it, he was all of a sudden like bright eyed and like, look at this, oh, this is really cool. But that was the power of Craig Ferguson. Okay, I need to go. All right, so if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at IncognitBro or at Chucking Dice. Please share, like, and subscribe. And always leave comments. I'm looking at you, Vic. You got to leave comments, man.
Yeah, and
You're our lifeblood, Vic.
And if you want any more information on the games or things we talked about, go ahead and leave a comment or a question.
Well, yeah, check out the description below because we'll have like
links and
stuff that lead to all the stuff that we talked about.
But I swear to God, if you guys talk about Louis C.K. masturbating, I'm gonna quit this goddamn thing. And look out for us. Look for our Monsterpalooza trip.
Yep, we'll have that out hopefully in 2 weeks. We'll bring the entire like the portable recorder and everything like that. Okay, we will see you later. Keep it rolling, guys.